Okay, let's talk about how to record what happens when you buy or sell. In this particular case, sell an asset like a piece of land or a building. How is that recorded in the statement of cash flows? This one's a little unique, so I wanted to kind of walk through this example. In the comprehensive example I posted, and I've got a lot of notes in there, but I just still want to kind of highlight a few things. Because it's a little strange in how we do this. You'll notice one of the steps I have in preparing the statement of cash flows is to identify any gains or losses as a result of selling a building or a piece of land or something like that. When you see that on the income statement, here's what you got to do. You got to really slow yourself down. And I really highly advise that you use T accounts to solve this to make sure you don't make a mistake. This is a really common area where mistakes are made on the statement of cash flows. All right, and sometimes you can not know it. So the best thing to do is to look closely. So for instance, in this example here, if we look at the income statement, we'll notice that there is a gain on the sale of land, and you'll notice this way on the bottom here, $5,000, right? And you'll notice that that gain on sale of land is increasing the net income that we're recording, right? Using the accrual basis as it should, all right? So obviously we must have sold some land to have it result in a gain. But if we look down at the balance sheet, you'll notice that at the start of the year, our land balance was $120,000. At the end of the year, it was $80,000. So maybe we had multiple pieces of land in there. We clearly didn't sell it all. But we definitely have a decrease in land, which would indicate maybe we had a sale. But what you got to do is you got to look really closely at whatever notes they provide you. Draw some T accounts out. Now, this is going to draw on your knowledge from previous chapters here, right? This is going to be a little bit like putting together a puzzle. And again, if you know your entries, you know what typically happens in the sale of an asset, go back to those previous chapters, you should be able to figure this out pretty easily. So you can see here, we've got our starting balance in land was 120. We know we ended with 80. These balances came right from the balance sheet, right? So what do we know? Well, we know that land went down by 40,000. So if I go ahead and put this in kind of as part of the puzzle, we know that it went down by 40,000. All right, but we also know that we had a gain recorded on this sale because we saw that on the income statement. Now, if you recall, gains are recorded as credits. You just got to know that. You got to remember that. Remember, losses are debits, gains are credits. So if we had a gain of 5,000, it wasn't 40,000 that we collected in cash when we sold this land. We must have actually collected 45,000. Look at your debits and credits here. Remember, they have to balance, right? So if I have two credits here, 40 and 5,000, I must have one big debit to cash of 45,000. This is where people often go wrong, right? So they often sometimes will just use this 40,000. You got to use this 45. Remember, we're doing the statement of cash flows, aren't we? So we're going to want the full 45,000. That's what we're going to record in the statement of cash flows. Now, the next question you have to ask yourself is, well, what kind of, activity is this? Well, when we buy or sell, an asset like land, a long-term asset like land, this is going to be an investing activity, Now, the good thing about the investing activity section, if you recall from earlier, is this one we're not reconciling any, net income or anything, right? All we're doing here in the investing activities section is asking ourselves, did we get cash or pay cash? And the answer here is when we sold the land, we got cash. Well, how much cash did we get? 45,000, did we? We got $45,000 in cash. So we want to put the full proceeds of that land here. We're going to give it a label here, right? Cash from the sale of land. Put it under the add section, and it will add to the investing activities section, okay? Now, that's all fine and good. But we've got one more problem here we have to deal with. And this is just a problem in kind of how the cash flow is structured. Remember up in the net income, right? Remember up in the net income here, we had this gain, right, on the income statement. We had this gain of 5,000, which was impacting our $25,000 in net income. Well, the problem is that's in this number. There's your 25,000, right? That gain's in that number already. The problem is we've also got it in here now, don't we? We don't want to double count that gain. All right, so what we got to do is up in the operating section, we need to subtract it. We need to subtract that gain. So, and really it's only for the sole purpose of not double counting it. Now you might be wondering, well, why not just put the lesser amount here, 40,000? Well, if we did that, we wouldn't have to do anything up here and we'd still reconcile at the end. But the problem is we wouldn't be fully recognizing down in the investing activity section what we really sold the land for. We really sold it for $45,000 cash. And then deducting the gain up here was just to kind of, so as we don't double count it in our number here. So that's really the only purpose here. Now, of course, you could probably deduct that if we'd had a loss on the sale of land or a building or whatever it happens to be, that would be added back in that upper section. So the opposite's always true here, okay? But, you know, again, if you go to your T accounts and you work it through, you won't have to memorize that, and don't try to memorize it. Just make sure you understand the transaction. Going slow here, going slow and steady here, really will pay dividends here, so you don't get to the end of the statement of cash flows and then have a whole bunch of messy problems you got to try to go back and fix, and you're just kind of guessing back and forth where it is. You don't want to be guessing. Like a lot of things in this class, you don't want to be guessing here. So make sure that you walk it through. All right?